Hello guys, and welcome back to Joe's Ventures. And today we're going to be doing part 71 of our Planet Zoo mod spotlight, where we take a look at some of the wonderful mods that people have been making and compare them to their real-life fossil counterparts. And today, I'll be honest, very interesting group of animals today. We haven't got any of those big heavy hitters that you see in a lot of these episodes, but a lot of really interesting animals that I'm really excited to talk about. So we're going to be starting off today with the yellow-edged moray eel. So we're going to have a look at that, done by Leaf and Buffsu. It's not a mod spotlight without one of these guys. So this is a really cool little guy here. So these guys also known as the leopard moray or the speckled moray, not spectacled. These guys are closely related to a lot of other eels. They're not too different from that regard in terms of other morays. And you can see their shape's not too dissimilar. They have these long bodies and large heads that make them look almost like a snake. And they also have this double row of teeth in their mouth as well, similar to other species. But these guys can get quite big as well. They can get to a length of about 240 centimeters or about 90 inches. But more typically get about 80 centimeters or 30 inches long with like this, you can see this spectacled or not spectacled, speckled color around it, whether it gets a name leopard moray or stuff like that. It's just these light spots around them, with its body typically being like a dull yellow with this bolted brown or black covering over it as well. And these guys, in terms of their habitat, they typically live around the Indo-Pacific, so they range from East Africa to the Red Sea of Japan, and also Indonesia and Australia, and the Hawaiian Islands as well, New Caledonia, Costa Rica, Panama, and the Galapagos Islands. And their habitat is typically these coral or rocky areas of reefs, and also they prefer reefs in protection of like seaweed reefs and things like that, and they typically range from a depth of about 150 meters or 500 feet, so not too deep divers. These guys are similar to other morays, are typically solitary. They'll often hide in their little crevasses and with the head protruding, and then they'll sometimes even share it with other species of morays or even members of their own species where they are nocturnal. So they will swim freely in the morning and evening, but they're typically nocturnal, where they'll eat fish, cetaceans, and crustaceans in their diet. And if a fish is speared in the reef, the morays will quickly appear because they're sensitive to injured and stressed fish. And they've become a natural predator of the lionfish in the Red Sea as well. And the shrimp-like crustacean Seponus Paranistus has also been found in close proximity with these guys, and has led them to believe that they have a symbiotic relationship as the shrimp cleans these guys of parasites, and obviously the shrimp gets a free meal. So it's a very interesting symbiotic relationship they've got going there. Really, really cool guys, and a wonderful job by Leaf and Buffsu. So next we're going to have a look at the next animal. We've got one by Narawala. We've got the Southern Screamer. So quite excited to see more bird mods. I'm always a big fan of bird mods, and even Narawala taking a stab at them. I'm a really big fan. So these guys, also known as the Crested Screamer, they're a member of the order Anseriformes, so that includes these guys, also like ducks and things like that. They can be found in southeastern Peru, northern Bolivia, Paraguay, southern Brazil, Uruguay, and northern Argentina. And they average in size from about 81 to 95 centimeters, or 32 to 37 inches long. And they weigh between 3 to 5 kilograms, or 6 to 11 pounds. They're also the heaviest, or although not necessarily the longest of the screamers. And they have a wingspan of about 170 centimeters, or about 67 inches long. And above standard measurements, they have a few other things, like the wing chord is about 54 centimeters, or 21 inches. In terms of their behavior and ecology, these guys are particularly good swimmers, and they have partially webbed feet, but they prefer to move on the ground. And they bony spurs on the wings that you can't really see them here, but they have bony spurs on their wings that they often use against rival screamers and also other enemies, so other small animals potentially trying to eat them or their chicks. Although they're non-migratory, they are excellent flyers, and they live in large flocks where they feed on the grasslands and cultivated fields until the nesting season, where these guys will pair off and do their own thing. Their unfussy diet makes them amenable to domestication, and they make excellent guard animals due to their loud screams. And they mean domestication is they get more tame to people and things like that, so that's very interesting. And we'll have a look at the babies while we talk about the breeding. So the Southern Screamer establishes monogamous relationships that can last its lifetime, which is estimated to be about 15 years. And courtship usually involves loud calling from both sexes, which can be heard up to 2 miles away, where they get the name the Screamer. For a nest, the couple makes a big platform of reeds, straws, and other aquatic plants. that is inaccessible place near water, and the female lays between 2 to 7 white eggs, and with the couple sharing the incubation, and that takes about 43 to 46 days, with chicks leaving the nest as soon as they hatch, but the parents care for them for several weeks, and the fledging period can be between 8 to 14 weeks for these guys. So very interesting little birds here. Well, not little, they're quite big, but really cool to see some more South American birds in the game as well, and more just birds in general. I'm a big fan of birds. So yeah, now we're going to move on to another South American beastie. We've got the Rio Epiporus Caiman. So this was done by Vinceabled and Leaf. I believe that might be the same guy as Mbabo, but I'm not sure. I do not know. We've got these wonderful Rio Epiporus Caiman, which are a subspecies of the spectacle caiman, which is actually coming in the next update, so that's awesome. These guys live in the rivers of Colombia. They were often considered sometimes and often marketed as like a distinct species of caiman by like Animal Planet's Extinct or Alive, which was a very fun episode, but there are some kind of problems with it, you could say. I'm not going to get too into that controversy now, but it kind of said these guys were their own species, but it seems from genetic evidence they may actually be a really distinct morphotype, or just look really, really different, but genetically they're very similar to your regular normal spectacle caiman, so they kind of keep that status as a subspecies because they're not actually that distantly related. They just look a lot different, which can happen in a lot of different species, so it's not weird. And the main difference is they have these like elongated skulls. It's a lot less like a caiman and more like a crocodile. So they've got these long, probably more adapted for eating fish. And they also have this light yellowish body with like dark splotches all over it, as you can see here. Really wonderful animal to look at though. Let's see if we can find the baby. The baby should be here somewhere. There he is. Look at this wonderful little guy. Look how cute he is. He looks like a little dinosaur. But yeah, it was first discovered in 1955, where it was first described by a scientist named Dr. Frederick Medem, who collected a few specimens. And then in 1981, it was seen during a last expedition. And the last known Rio Epiporus caiman died in a zoo in 1898, until 2019, 2020s, around that time, where they were kind of rediscovered again, and they were using DNA samples and stuff, and discovering lots of juveniles and things like that. You can watch some of that process, obviously, on Extinct or Alive. Very fun episode, but yeah, really, really cool caiman, and we learned a lot because we know that it's not its own species. It's like a weird morphotype, so that means it's clearly looks very different, but genetically it's very similar to other spectacle caiman, so that's why I think it's kept its division as a subspecies. Really, really awesome little guy there. So done by Vinceabled and Leaf, who did a wonderful job. And next we've got one that's made by just Leaf. We have got the Swamp Wallaby. So another really cool little guy here. Really, really wonderful. A little bit of a jank, but it's alright. The Swamp Wallaby is a very small macropod, so that's the group that includes wallabies, kangaroos and such. And they're often commonly referred to as the black wallaby, or the fern wallaby, or the black paddy melon, sometimes called the stinker, or the black stinker, because it has a very smelly odor, so that's funny. These guys are typically found in northernmost areas of Cape York and Queensland, and they can also be found down through the entire coast, east coast around to southwestern Victoria. And they were formerly found throughout southeastern and South Australia, but they're now mainly absent from that region because of potentially hunting, things like that. And the habitats they tend to prefer are things like woodlands and forests with thick undergrowth, and they shelter during the day in these ferns and things, and they emerge at night to feed. And you can see they get the name the bicolor, the wallaby bicolor, from the distinct colorations. You can see they've got two mainly different colors here. They got this really typical like dark coat here, but they also have these light markings around the chest and face, as you can see here. And the gait often differs from other wallabies, and they carry their hair low and their tail out straight. And the average length for these guys is between 76 is about 76 or 30 inches for males and 74 or 28 inches for females. That excludes the tail. And the tail of both sexes is about the same length. And the adult males weigh about 17 kilograms or 37 pounds. And females will average about 13 or 29 pounds. And that's really, really cool. We're going to talk about the reproduction while we have a look at these cute little baby wallabies. The swamp wallaby becomes reproductively fertile between 15 and 18 months old, and they can breed throughout the year. Gestation typically takes about 33 to 38 days, where that leads to a single young, and then being a marsupial, these young will be carried in the pouch for about 8 to 9 months, where they'll suckle from their mother until about 15 months old. And like a lot of animals I've mentioned here, they're able of embryonic diapause. That means they are able to kind of stop gestations and stuff like that, so they can have like multiple pregnancies almost at the same time. So they can have an embryo and a fetus at the same time, and then they can also have a baby in their pouch as well, so they're really able to produce babies. And they're actually very interesting as well, is that they're notable for having distinct sex chromosomes compared to most other like therians, which includes marsupial and placental mammals. So females are typically characterized by the XX typical chromosome, but males have one X and the non-Y zone. So XY is kind of the male there. And the system has arrived from a series of chromosomal fusions that's happened over the last 6 million years or so. So in terms of nutrition, these guys are pretty generalist. These guys will eat whatever they can. So lots of wide range of foods. They'll eat a lot of pasture crops as well, and native and exotic vegetation. And they're able to tolerate a lot of plants that are toxic to other animals, such as hemlock and things like that. And they're typical grazers. They like to browse in shrubs and stuff, and rather than graze on grasses, which is actually atypical for other macropods, since these guys preferred browsing to grazing. But these guys are well adapted for it, and they're believed to be an opportunistic feeder, so they take advantage of pretty much what things they get around. So they'll eat fungi, bark, and algae, and they'll also scavenge if necessary, or if it's the opportunity arises to get different nutrients. And in terms of their threats, I believe they are considered least concern, but threats to these guys include things like habitat loss, roads through their habitat as well, is a big thing of roadkill, and another thing is that they're also, another threat is their predators, which includes wild dogs, dingoes, eagles, and things like that. But other than that, they're pretty good. And I think these guys came out pretty wonderfully. Really, really cute. Nice little swamp wallaby. So that was done by Leaf, and now we're going to move on to another one done by Leaf. We have got the Golden-Bellied Capuchin monkey. So another critically endangered animal, sadly. We'll talk about them. So these guys are also known as the yellow-breasted or the buff-headed capuchin. They're not too different from other types of capuchins. The main difference is kind of the golden-bellies you can kind of see there. There are differences between individuals and as well as sexes. These guys typically have that yellow to golden red chest and the upper arms and things like that. And in terms of their size, capuchin males will stand about 15.7 inches, or about 40 centimeters tall, and weigh about 8.8 pounds, or 4 kilograms. Females being slightly smaller, about 37 centimeters tall, or about 14.6 inches, and about 5.5 pounds, or 2.5 kilos, with these prehensile tails allowing them to climb and things like that. And their lifespan has been estimated to be about 15 to 25 years in the wild, but in captivity they've been known to live up to 50 years. So these guys, they have a much more like southern habitat. They've been restricted to the Atlantic forests of like southeastern Brazil, and this is believed to be because of the high degradation down there by humans. And the largest contiguous area of these guys is believed to have a population of about 185 individuals, but there are some breeding in zoos as well. So like other capuchins, they live in trees, and also like that, they live in groups of about 3 to 30 individuals, with the hierarchy depending on their social status. Of course, let's look at the little baby. Where's the little baby? There's a little baby. Have a look at him. Look at how cute this little fluffy man is. There's usually equal number of males and females living together, but there is a male and female alpha, and the rest are lower ranking. And they spend most of the time grooming each other and hanging out with each other as well. They also participate in urine washing, which means they cover themselves in their own urine to mark their territory, with the scent traveling with them. And in terms of communication, they will make short yips and cries similar to a newborn puppy. And when they're in danger, they'll actually emit a two-toned clucking noise. And many of these noises are quite similar to bird calls. And they also communicate a lot through chemical signals, such as to establish boundaries and also during mating rituals. And in reproduction, they can mate year-round, but females give birth typically every 2 years. And they mostly feed on, and they mostly rely on their mother. I just misread that. And for the first year of their life, and they become independent from their mother from about 6 to 12 months old, with female capuchins reaching maturity about 4 to 5 years old, and they start mating at give birth at about 7 to 8 years old, with males reaching maturity and fertile at about 6 to 8 years old. So a little bit A little bit younger, a little bit older. Let's have a look at these little capuchins, the adults here. But in terms of predation, they can be often they have camouflage, but they're eaten by things such as snakes, crocodiles, large carnivorous mammals such as jaguars, things, crocodiles. Though the larger the group, they have less chance to have becoming prey because they have more people, more capuchins watching out for food, watching out for predators, so they don't become food. And if a predator is spotted, they'll use an alarm call to set off the rest of the group so they can get away. And yeah, in terms of their diet, they're actually, they feed on both plant and animal matter, so that makes them omnivorous. They'll feed on plants such as fruits, nectar, leaves, stems, things like that, but they'll also eat things like bird eggs, frogs, small birds, bats, mammals, and things even near marine areas such as shellfish and oysters and things like that. And in terms of their conservation, they're listed as critically endangered because their population has declined, and I believe the largest place you can find them is a population of about 185, so there's likely no more than a couple thousand, which is pretty sad. And the threats to these guys is obviously deforestation and logging, which has been causing huge issues around the Amazon for biodiversity loss and things like that. And they've been trying to really protect them, and that's why they are considered critically endangered. And they're also endangered hunting as well for these guys, for like pets and also food and things like that. But really, really wonderful little monkeys, if I do not say so myself. Really wonderful little guys. And next, we got another monkey. We have got by Nick, Leaf, Jen, and Gaboy. We have got the Cockroach Savaka. So this is a really interesting lemur. Really cool guy. So we'll have a talk about this one over there. That's a juvenile, but we'll have a look at you. Look at you. Oop, no, it's not what we wanted. Look at you sitting over there. We'll talk about you. Wonderful little guy. So these guys, Cockroach Savaka, are a type of diurnal medium-sized lemur that was thought to be a subspecies of the Venorex's lemur, but is actually now its full species, and it's been listed as endangered by the IUCN because of habitat loss and things like that. You can see they've got a very interesting pattern to them. So they've got like this white coat with these portions of the limbs being like brownish and black and things like that. And the naked ears are also black as well, and its eyes, you can see here, are yellow to orange. And the bottom of the lemur's hands and feet are also black. And they have like this tomb comb, like all lemurs do, to use for grooming and sometimes scraping fruit off a pit. So these guys, in terms of distribution, they live in altitudes of about less than 300 meters or 91 meters. 3,000 feet or 91 meters. In these dry deciduous forests of northwestern Madagascar, that includes these coastal forests. And groups will typically have a home range of about 4 to 9 hectares or 9.9 to 22.2 acres. And sometimes they will have high population densities of about range from 5 to 100 per kilometre, so it really depends on that. And the estimated population size is about 47,000 individuals, but they are also frequently seen in villages as well, but they are still considered critically endangered. So in terms of their diet, they are herbivorous, and by the wet season they'll eat leaves, fruits, barks and dead woods, and the dry season they'll eat mature leaves and buds and things. And they eat nearly about 100 plant species, but the majority of the time they consist of about 10% of those. And actually they have a very fibrous diet. That means they've actually developed a very large sesame and column to help facilitate that digestion of these fibrous plants. And they spend 40% of the day foraging, including like the morning, midday, and evening, with females often taking leadership roles during foraging to assert their dominance by eating the preferred food and denying the males food until they are satisfied. The lemurs are beneficial to the environment because they're really good at spreading seeds, and these guys also in captivity will eat shining leaf sumac and mimosas, apparently. Or mimosa, I believe that's what it is. Our Cockroach Savaka, they live in maternal matriarchal groups, so it's typically led by the females, and there can be groups from 10 to 12 individuals. And as I mentioned, that's how they use, and the females would demonstrate that. In terms of reproduction, these guys will choose to mate with in-group males, choose their mates whether in-group males or out-group males, but it really just depends on the individual. And infants are born in June, July, because mating happens in January to February. Babies are born from June to July, and after a gestation period of 162 days or so. And normally one infant is born during the Madagascar dry season, with newborns being about 100 grams, but they can vary from 85 to 115 grams. And they'll cling to their mother's chest about a month after birth, and they transfer it back to her. And they're weaned to become fully independent about 6 months or so of age, and adult size has reached about 5 years. And they reach sexual maturity at about 2 to 3.5 years old. They do not have their first offspring until they're 6, so they have a bit of a delay there. And there is also hybridization between other species of sphakas. And in the trees, these guys have very interesting locomotion, so they maintain an upright posture between climbing in trees and things like that. And it's very characteristic of most lemurs, but these guys can leap very well. They can leap about 35 feet or 11 meters, and they can do that without hurting themselves, which is very interesting. And often when they jump on the ground, they have to run almost like weird people. If you've seen sphakas, they really walk weird. On the ground, they like hop around. Really, really interesting, but they're really not adapted for walking on land too much. But yeah, in terms of communication as well, the name Sifaka also comes from the Malagasy name that comes from the Sifaka sound, which is the first syllable in that growl. So it's kind of it's kind of to simulate the Sifaka, like how they sound. It's onomatopoeia, I think the term is. And they'll also use other calls to communicate with each other and things like that. And also, like many lemurs, they've been studied to help humans understand the evolution of primates, including us. And they also have subjects of research, including parental care, primate societies that are matriarchal, color vision, speciation, things like that. But they are so endangered, the ecotourism industry greatly benefit because these guys often bring something new to the country and often brings people to the country to see these cool lemurs. Though their population is thought to be widely distributed, they're only found in 2 protected areas in Madagascar, and that's why they're considered critically endangered. Their primary threats include things like deforestation, habitat fragmentation, and hunting. But luckily, they're still quite common, but obviously these threats can happen as well. And predation includes from these guys that include feral dogs, African cats, European cats, mongooses, civets also prey on them as well. But humans are their biggest hazard, though killing lemurs was taboo. These guys now see humans as a threat and may give alarm calls to warn others. And yeah, really, really cool monkeys here. I'm glad that Nick, Leaf, Jen, and Gaboy did a wonderful job with this lemur. Big fan. So next we're going to look on, and we're going to have a look at the Noshi, done by Leaf and Phonetic Mods. Another Phonetic Mods animal here. So look how wonderful these guys are. With a cute little baby. So these guys are a type of sheep. They get to a body length of about 140 to 160 centimeters long, or about 4 foot 6 to 5 foot 3, and a shoulder height of 95 to 112 centimeters, or 3 foot 1 to 3 foot 7, with a weight of about 60 to 120 kilograms, or about 132 to 264 pounds. And you can see they've got this grayish coat around here with these large horns, and they got like this coffee look to them. Really, really interesting. And they are related, though their coat is slightly lighter than the bighorn sheep, and then they are more closely related to bighorn sheep from America than Asian sheep. And you can see they have these large horns, with the bases being up to about 38 centimeters or 15 inches in circumference for males. Females ones, as you can see, are significantly shorter. Oh, that's not what we wanted. Significantly shorter. That's not what we wanted as well. As you can see here, not quite as long. Yeah, big wonderful male we got here. So they live in northeastern Russia, where they're believed to be descended from bighorn sheep that got over there somehow. And they're also considered, I believe, least concerned, since there's not too many dangers, potentially vulnerable because of habitat change and things like that. They are regularly hunted. And in terms of their behavior, they're not too different from your normal bighorn sheep. These guys live in mountains and able to climb over terrains. They also live in hierarchical societies, with males and females being segregated and then coming together during the breeding season, where the males will fight for mating rights. And in terms of breeding, the gestation period for these guys is about 8.5 months, with about 1 or 2 babies being born at a time. And the babies take about 4 to 6 months to wean. And they reach sexual maturity at about 2 years old, and males at about 5 years old, and lifespan of about 9 years. So really, really interesting little guys here. Big fan of these Noshi. Phonetic is really doing some wonderful mod things. I'm a big fan of Phonetic mods. I'm glad that they've decided to come back and really make some nice things for us. Really awesome. So next, we're going to be moving on to another one done by Narwhaler. We have got the Wild Boar. So I've already covered these guys before, but Nawala did a wonderful job at making these. So these guys are also known as the wild pig or the Eurasian wild pig or something like that. These guys are a type of suet or type of pig that are native to much of Europe and North Africa, but they have introduced into the Americas and to Oceania. They're one of the most wide-ranging mammals in the world, and they are considered least concerned by the IUCN because there's high numbers, and they're actually considered invasive species in parts of their introduced range, such as New Zealand, Australia, and America as well, North America at least. And yeah, there's quite a lot of difference between these guys. I believe that they're actually a species complex, so there's about 16 subspecies described, but there could potentially be up to 4 or 5 species of wild boar in that group. And these guys are quite large and stocky, as you can see. They've got big heads and big tusks and all that, and brownish coat on these guys. These guys are most likely just your typical Eurasian brown wild boar, something like that. And in terms of their size, they can run pretty fast as well. Adult size is largely determined by the environment, with most of Europe, which I'm going to assume these guys are, they get between 75 and 100 kilograms, or 165 to 220 pounds, or 75 to 80 centimeters at the shoulder, and about 150 meters long in total body length, where the females average a little bit smaller. They get about 60 to 80 kilograms, or 130 to 180 pounds, with 70 centimeter or 28 inches at the shoulder, and about as low as 50 kilograms, or 45 kilograms, or 99 pounds, with a shoulder height about 63 to 65, depending on the population, things like that. There's a lot of variability. With some largest bulls and stuff like that, they can reach kind of brown bear size, so about 270 kilograms or about 600 pounds, and they measure about 110 to 118 centimeters tall at the shoulder, about 43 to 46 inches, with some just really huge individuals potentially living in some areas with a lot of variation. Though these guys also live in female-dominated societies, so they're kind of the sows and the mothers of the young, kind of led by old matriarchs. And male boars will typically leave this herd at about 8 to 15 months age, where these males will go off and form their own groups or even just be solitary, and they will just do their own thing until the breeding season comes around. The breeding season typically takes place around November or January, though most matings only last about a month and a half. Where these guys will often challenge and fight each other for females. And at the end of the runt, males are often been badly mauled and lost a lot of body weight. And the gestation period varies across the age of the expecting mother, but the gestation period on average is about 114 to 130 days, while it lasts 133 to 140 for older sows. And fawning often begins in March and May, with litter size depending on the age and nutrition, with the average litter consisting of 4 to 6 piglets, as you can see here, very, very cute little guys, with the maximum being about 10 to 12, where these guys are whelped in like a nest that they make out of twigs, leaves, and stuff. And should the mother die prematurely, the piglets are abandoned by the other sows, so often they get abandoned, so that sucks. Newborn little piglets here are newly born about 600 to 1,000 grams, a little under a kilo, but they have milk teeth and stuff like that. And there's intense competition for these guys to get the most milk-rich nipples, and the ones that manage to do grow a little bit faster. And after the lactation period of about 2.5 to 3.5 months, they lose that coloration at about 8 months old as well, and they display adult feeding behavior about 2 to 3 weeks, and their permanent dentition is formed at about 1 to 2 years old, and they attain sexual maturity at the age of 1 year old, and males about 2 years old. However, estrus usually occurs after 2 years in sows, while males begin domesticating in the runt by 4 or 5 years old, because they often can't compete with the older males. And the maximum lifespan in the wild for these guys is 10 to 14 years, and the few survive past 4 or 5, and boars in captivity live up to 20 years. So in terms of the behavior and ecology, they're very diverse. They can live in almost any habitat, from tigers to deserts, pretty generalist. They prefer, in Europe, mixed forests as well. Some areas they prefer more open areas. Really just depends. Even like open areas they don't mind, and they're pretty generalist. They'll eat roots. They're highly versatile omnivores, which has allowed them to become so evasive. They're willing to eat like roots and tubers. They'll also eat barks and stuff like that. They'll also eat eggs, lizards, snakes, carrion as well, mollusks, fish, pretty much anything they will eat, with a 50 kilogram boar needing about 4 to 4,500 calories a day. And in terms of predators, these guys are preyed upon by snow leopards, jungle cats, martens, brown bears, also some areas tigers, Komodo dragons as well as another common prey, things like that. And as I mentioned, their range is typically from North Africa and much of Eurasia, so they go from the Sunda Islands to the British Isles, but they have been introduced to places such as Sweden and Norway, I believe, also Denmark. They lost a lot of their range there, but they're starting to come back. And the status in Great Britain they've become rare, so they're quite endangered locally, so there's been effort to try and rewild stuff that's been happening with like hedgehogs and things like that. And they've been introduced to North America as well because of people wanting to hunt them, also people want to eat them, where they destroy crops, destroy native ecosystems, and spread diseases. But they also do the same in South America and New Zealand. And in terms of their culture, they're often kind of featured prominently. They're kind of like the embodied warriors. And they also good eaten. Lots of cultures kind of consider them like a source of food. But I've had wild boar before; it tastes nice. And also, they often can get into buildings and things, and get into rubbish and things like that, which can be bad. But really, really cool animals. Big fan of these boar. Definitely not boring. Done by Norwalla, who always does a wonderful job. And last, and most definitely not least, we have got a fish this time. Again, we've got this time by Leaf, Jen, and Buffsu, the dream team making the Aquaria pack. We have got the Goblin Shark. So the Goblin Shark, as you can see here, is kind of a rare species of shark that can only be found in deep sea. They're sometimes called a living fossil, as their lineage is mainly extinct, and the only representative that has lasted about 125 million years old. That's how old they are. And they have a really distinctive kind of like look to them, where they kind of get their name, the Goblin Shark, because they have these really interesting teeth. And they're able to actually like shoot their jaws out to collect prey. And they typically get about 3 to 4 meters or 10 to 13 feet long when mature, but they can grow considerably larger, since there's been animals captured in 2000 that are like about 6 meters long. And they are considered bethnopelagic creatures, so they typically live in upper continental shelves, seamounts, and sea canyons. And throughout the world, and they live in depths greater than 100 meters or 30 feet, with adults found deeper than juveniles. Some research believes that they're able to dive to depths of about 1,300 meters or 4,720 feet for short periods of time. And they are very, very interesting if you think of fish. They have such a flabby body, and they're also sluggish. The typical food that they eat is like teleos fish, cephalopods, crustaceans, both in the water column and in the bottom of the ocean as well. And they often, this long snout that they have here, which helps give their name the Goblin Shark, because they have a long nose that kind of looks like a big goblin, which is pretty interesting. See if you can find the other ones. There we go. Maybe have a look at you swimming. But they also have this. They have the, similar to other sharks, they have the ampullae of Lorenzi, which allows them to detect minute differences in electric fields that is produced by nearby prey that can be injured, things like that, which they can snatch up with their extendable jaws that I mentioned, which is pretty cool. They're also considered least concern because we just don't know too much about them, but they seem to be common. But yeah, really, really cool guys. They're just really interesting look to them. Typically, adult sharks will measure 3 to 4 meters, as I mentioned, but enormous ones have been seen at about 6 meters, and their maximum weight has been about 210 kilograms, so about 460 pounds, so that's pretty big. And in terms of the habitat, they've been found across the Atlantic. They're found from Gulf of Mexico to the Indo-Pacific. They've even been found near New Zealand, California, around Kaikoura in New Zealand as well. And typically adults will inhabit greater depths than the juveniles, so immature sharks will live around these submarine canyons, places like that, but the larger ones will live in deeper water. And in terms of their ecology, being a deep sea animal, they tend to be sluggish and things like that. And as I mentioned, they have the ampullae of Lorenzi that allows them to collect electrical fields. And they actually may be prey for animals like blue sharks and also copepods. And the main of the animals they eat include things like rat's tails, dragonfish, cephalopods, crustaceans. And they're an ambush predator that allows them to be neutrally buoyant, so they can allow them to drift with minimal effort, and then they can strike their prey with their elongated jaws when they drift up next to it. Really, really cool. And their life history is also very interesting. Little's known about their reproduction, but a pregnant female has been yet to be found and studied. but they likely believe, like other mackerel sharks, they are viviparous, which they have small litter sizes, and embryos will grow during gestation by eating like undeveloped eggs or urophagy, with their birth size being about 82 centimeters or 32 inches long, which is the length of the smallest known specimen. And mature males will mature sexually at about 2.6 meters, or about 8.5 feet long. With females, we don't know. And there's really no data about their growth or aging, though some estimated that these guys can mature at about 16 years of age and maybe live up to about 60 years, but it's really just estimations on their part for that. And in terms of human interactions, they were first found in 1910, where the researcher that found them noted that they were particularly grotesque, and they noticed the long nose, which made them look like a goblin. But there actually been some specimens that have been caught in public aquariums as well. They're only seen occasionally. So there was one that lived in a week in an aquarium in 2K, and one in the Tokyo Sea Life Park that lived for 2 days. But they they often aren't very commercially viable, just because people don't want to eat them much. So they're typically used for like liver oil or fertilizer. Though they're not targeted by most fisheries, they can get caught in bycatch, which is another big issue as well. And often they can be caught. There was more than 100 goblin sharks actually caught off northwestern Taiwan, which is believed to be by a major earthquake. So they actually managed to predict an earthquake because these sharks were getting out of the deep waters. So they're kind of like, oh, there's an earthquake that could be coming. And they are generally considered IUCN because of their wide range, and most of their population seems to reside in unfished environments. And because few adults are caught, they're believed to be not directly threatened by human activity. But of course, things like climate change, habitat degradation, things like that can be bad because few adults are caught. Though there some have just believed that they're naturally uncommon, or their range is just not enough information to really judge their populations. But yeah, really, really cool shark here. I'm a big fan. Jen Lee from Buffsu, you did a wonderful job. So yeah, I believe this is going to be a great place to end the video. So yeah, I really, really, really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys like and subscribe. Always remember to hit the little bell icon to get notified about anything. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you guys like and subscribe, and bye-bye.